Camp whooped your butt, I'm not gonna lie.
This is your start. Where was your antennas? Why you didn't come help?
I was talking to Greg.
Oh, you was talking to Greg. As you saw that video, everybody probably saw, I was the only jersey on defense. Nobody else, but the offensive guys were there, but none of my guys there for it.
You gotta talk to Kurt about that. Oh, what's up? In the wrong room, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, no, go ahead. Well, so let me ask first, Coach Rivera, one question, and that is about our charity tonight, which is very close to his heart, and I'd like you to explain a little bit where the proceeds of the tickets are going to go to tonight, please.
Yes, so first of all, thank you all for coming in for your donations. The Veterans Bridge Homes is a program that started to help veterans returning to their home and give them an opportunity to find work, to find places to live, to re-assimilate to the community. And Charlotte had started one in 2015. And what had happened was Peter Vach, where you at, Pete? There he is. Peter is one of our community relations directors, and he came to me one day and said, you know, they don't really have a place right now. Would you mind if they came to the stadium and had their coffee clutches? And I said, absolutely. So they came, became part of it, and they were around us during this time too. So when I was asked, what do you think we should do? I said, I think that would be a perfect group to give the donations to.
We're glad to have them here. We're glad to have Courtney here. I gave her a heads up, but I wanted to ask you, there's a story, there's so many stories that we had to kind of leave on the cutting room floor. One of my favorites that Courtney told us was about the time that she scouted Cam Newton for her dad.
So I am unofficially the first person to scout Cam Newton, and you're welcome. After he got hired, it was my senior year in school at Cathedral Catholic, so high school senior.
In San Diego.
Yeah, he left. He's getting ready to get all this stuff done. I'm still in school, and I'm in class, and all of a sudden, I hear a bunch of people like kind of freaking out by the window. I'm like, what is going on right now? I'm walking over, and all of a sudden, everyone's like, guys, it's Cam Newton. Cam Newton's here. It's like, what? Look out the window, and on our football field, we see Cam Newton working out with, I can't remember his name, but he's one of the big-time quarterback trainers, and he's getting his workout in. And I immediately after class text Dad, and I'm like, you are never going to guess who's working out here. And tell him it's Cam, and start getting text messages from Dad. So what's he working on? How's he looking? And so I started just kind of texting him like, Cam's back, and he's doing drop bats, he's doing all that agility stuff, he's looking good. And kept kind of going back and forth with him, and then, everything kind of worked out, and told Dad, I'm like, I think he's looking good. He's improving. He's looks great. Y'all saw it, so just kind of told him, Dad, I think he's your guy, and I think he's got it from what I can see. And it's like, he's like, all right, sounds good. And they did the rest, and, that's how it went.
So the secret weapon in the Cam Newton #1 draft.
Okay, let me ask. We are going to have fan questions, by the way, so be thinking about it. We'll walk over to you with a mic in this room. And so if you have a question for anybody on our panel, but Luke, this is for you. So one thing we're not able to get in the movie again because of time, but I love the story, is when a fan dropped from the sky and nearly into your lap when you returned an interception for a touchdown in the NFC Championship game versus Arizona. So can you describe what happened there? And J.J. has some funny things to say about this too, so maybe J.J. wants to chime in too. But this is Arizona, pick six for Luke.
Yeah, I think Stu kind of nailed when they talked about the energy in that stadium. Obviously, he referenced the Seattle Seahawks game, that big run that he had. The energy of that stadium, that whole season, especially that playoff run, was unbelievable. So at the end of that game, when that interception happened, the game was kind of already in the grasp, and the party had started at Bank of America Stadium. We knew we were going. They were starting to pull guys out of the game. The lead was big enough that we felt very comfortable, and then we punched another score in, and the roof blew off that place. But we ran into the end zone, and I was walking against that back wall right there, and Josh was right there. Cam came running on the field. The whole defense was there, and out of what felt like the sky, a person fell out of the air and landed right in front of me, and that's a pretty good drop. It's probably an 8-foot, 9-foot drop, and the guy landed directly on his back, and he was right underneath me, and the look on his face was something that you couldn't ever describe. It was excitement. It was, how did I get here? It was a little bit of pain. I think the guy had a couple cold beers throughout that meeting, but I think it was just kind of a good example of the energy and the passion and the excitement of everybody in that field and in that stadium, from the players to the coaches to obviously the fans. The look on his face was, he was probably as surprised as I was that there was a random person that just fell out of the stands on the ground. So, JJ, I'll pass it to you and kind of let you describe your aspect of it as well.
I remember running on the field. That there was a lot of PATs in that game, and so I got to experience a lot of this. I actually saw the guy fall out of the stands, and it was not surprised as I was running onto the field that Luke was also immediately not only scoring the touchdown, but helping the guy back into the stands. Probably get to have some snacks. I mean, he was very helpful like that. We always get every preseason. On preseason 4, we would play at Pittsburgh, and in that game, Luke would call the defense for McDermott. He'd get water after the fan. Like, this was right up his alley. But I always remember that was the one time I think about a year or two prior, they had changed the PAT rule, and then partly because of Cam, was that they would no longer pause the 40-second clock because we were celebrating so long that they just kept it running. And so in that game, that was one of the few times they actually stopped the clock because there was a fan had fallen off. Our whole team was like on the field, and I just remember Cam would always lead the celebrations. And that particular day, he was running around the field, and this was always kind of scary for me because Coach would yell at me on the field to get the snap off. And I always used to say to him, like, I'm not in charge of snapping the ball. Like, when Cam gets off the field, we can snap it. And that was a good example. In that particular case, we had to get the whole defense, the whole offense.
The guy off the field.
We had to get the guy off the field. That place, in my entire time, this is now 17 years, that place has shook 2 times in my career. Dominic Hickson in the front corner of the end zone in 2013, and at the end of the Arizona game when Luke scored that touchdown. And that was the two times I physically felt on the field that place shook, and it was the coolest moment of my career was that last 10 minutes of that game.
Josh. Everybody remembers Stephen Drummond talking about Josh's post-game press conferences. How did you feel hearing Stephen Drummond say your press conferences got so bad?
We thought they were great. Josh, you were told that you were Batman in Gotham City one time. After you played your Colts, you said that Batman was here to save Gotham City. Sorry about that. But he's right. Nobody would stand by you because nobody wanted to be associated with you. It's like you had the plague and everybody around your locker would slowly move away. And then when they left, everybody would kind of slowly move back. But you loved every second of it.
Well, who knew Luke talked this much, right? Like, oh, quiet now, Luke. But then when we get going. So, no, I don't know. Like, it was a combustible of things, right? A lot of stuff happened. If it wasn't TD, it was Luke. It always bothered me. It always messed with me. Even in the defensive meeting room, they wouldn't leave the defensive meeting room. It would have to go to lunch. Like, why you eating all this food on the plate? You like cleaned up your room, the mess. You get behind the curtain. I'm watching film. They come in here. What you doing? Like, everything it had always had to be something. And so even when
we're talking about Stephen Drummond, not Thomas. It's not even what the question was.
See, after DJ banned on track, see, it's not even answering the question, just how to start. See, Coach, I'm glad you're here for this. This is how to start.
Just so you know, all these things I've heard them for the first time. In fact, this is something y'all don't know. Luke really is one of the biggest antagonists of all. Really. No, one of the all-time great things that he did was during Halloween one year when he dressed up like him. I don't remember that, but he put on the really tight stuff, put on the hood, draped it over it, put a towel over the top, and it just kind of walked around like that, and everybody kept going, okay, we get it. It was one of the best things, though, because if anybody could jab at him, other than you, it was Luke. Get away with it. And really, that's what the thing that I think you guys were emphasizing in the movie was just how much these guys came together, just how much these guys took care of each other. And it's a coach's dream because the one thing that you always want is your players to take responsibility and take ownership. When they take ownership, it's one of the greatest things that ever happened. Danny Morrison told me one time, it was one of the best things I'd ever heard. My brother Mickey passed away just before we went to training camp of cancer. And I was going to have to go to the funeral. And the day I'm going to the funeral, I called the captain and I tell him to lead and, hey, take care of everything, get it done, make sure everything's happening the right way it is. And then I talked to Coach Wilkes, our assistant head coach. I go to the funeral, I'm gone, I miss a day and a half of practice. I come back, and Danny comes to me right away, and the first thing he says, Ron, you would have never known you were gone. Those guys took ownership, man. They took care of each other. They practiced the way you wanted them to practice. One of the best things. And I can truly tell you, when people tell you these guys took ownership and were responsible for themselves, and I say this all the time, great players make good coaches. And that's what we had. We had the right kind of players in the right spot. We had guys that were probably at the peak of their career. We also had enough veterans around them to help them, direct them in the right direction. That's why these guys played like they did, because they understood what it took. They understood what it meant. And I don't disagree with what Melissa said. There may not be another team like this, but 2015 was special because of guys like these.
The way that Mike Tolbert lights up a room when he shows up with his energy, like you can't recreate that when it's sorry guys, like just print word. Like you can't.
Thanks a lot. Yes.
That's what makes this so special. Because it's all about connecting with whether it's your audience or your teammates or your fans. You gotta see people face to face.
This was not an audition. So I'm not auditioning for Chibi, but no, just kidding. But DC in your future?
Actually, I'm a current defensive coordinator at Charlotte Christian. August 27th, we have our first game of the year. So if you'd like to come to that, you can. We have practice next week, 3 times a week, so you can also come by that too.
I've already made Luke promise that TJ Olson will not be blitzing my son in football because I've already heard from Greg and Luke that they raise these guys to be like savage dogs. And so if my kid's on the offensive side, I don't really want to be a part of that.
Come back.
I think it was week 8 of that season. You guys were playing Indianapolis, and there was a protest that went on. They actually rappelled over and hung there for almost a quarter. Did you guys notice that on the sideline, and was it strange?
JJ, go ahead. We just talked about this week.
Luke and I were just talking about that. So that was one of the wildest nights in Panther Stadium history. So it was Gotham City. So that night, you guys remember, that night started, it was like a misty, it was a weird misty night. It rained the entire game, which is rare for Charlotte. Like, we'll get some big storms, but like it rarely just missed the whole time. So it was kind of dark. And I looked over my shoulder, so I have a lot of time on the sideline just sitting, looking around. And while everyone else was playing, all of a sudden I realized, there's people hanging from the rafters. And it's not like you could just end that protest. They're literally hanging off the side of the stadium. So like you said, that went on for like a quarter and a half. And if memory serves correctly, like I wasn't even really sure what they were protesting. Like you had to like read reports like for a couple days later to figure out. Like they were upset at a bank. They were upset at the bank, but they're really upset about like coal mine. I can't remember what it was, but it was like I was confused. Meanwhile, we were playing. We were trying to stay undefeated, and it went into overtime.
Your game experience is so much different.
It's so different.
Josh is trying to cover T.Y. Hilton. Greg's trying to block the Quell Jackson. JJ's looking at protesters. Bank of America, or is it Truist, or is it the full line? As long as it's Virginia, we can't figure out what it is.
But I do remember that night it was so wet and the ball was getting heavier and heavier, and so it was getting harder to snap. It was getting harder to kick. Adam Vinatieri made a kick to start overtime. So we went down, and there was like a 54-yarder, and Graham's setting up to kick it. And he makes it. And I remember snapping this ball and thinking, oh my God, I have no idea how I pulled that off. Like, it was the slickest thing I'd ever snapped.
Humble brag. You're pretty good.
It wasn't that humble because, so we continue in overtime. There's only like 4 minutes left. Roman Harper tips the ball. We were talking about this. And you intercepted. I remember when that ball was first caught thinking, please just run it back for a touchdown. I don't want to go back on this field again. I want to find out more about the protest. You didn't score, and about 3 plays later, Graham hit another one for like 52 yards, and that place went nuts. But that was a weird night. That was Gotham City, man.
I went over here. So that was when the press conference took off.
You should have waited to the whole. Tell us about it, Josh.
Something else you want to know?
Norman, just wish I had Norman.
Pepper is not here to hear my question, but I've been reading the paper, Scott and other people's commentary as to why Cam and the Panthers haven't been able to get together. I mean, he was complaining that his pitcher's on the third level, and, you know, I think we all sort of, like Josh, had some exception with Cam, but he was a great player, and, you know, debate's probably the best player in Panther history.
It's a great question. I think Cam means a lot to this organization, this city, certainly this team, and obviously the main character on this film here was Cam. So I think we'd all love for Cam to be around more, but everybody understands you get done playing football, there's a lot going on. Cam has kids. Cam lives in Atlanta. Cam does a lot with the podcast. Cam runs a highly successful 7-on-7 tournament. So Cam's been back. Cam's been around. Obviously, we re-signed him. JJ, what year is that? 21. He was back. So he'll be back. I think it's just one of those things. It's got to work out timing wise to get everybody on the same page and back around. But we certainly all have a very unique relationship with Cam. He's a special guy. He was a special teammate. He was somebody that you never questioned his intent going into a game. He was there to win football games. And the one thing I'll say about Cam, 2 things. No one worked harder than Cam. And I never saw Cam ever, in the whole time I played with him, to throw a guy under the bus or yell at somebody on the team, in the sense if you ran that route wrong, hey, Ryan Cleo, that snap was too high. Never threw guys under the bus to the media. So there's a lot that gets made out of Cam as a person, certainly as a player, but I think we'll all stand up here, and the one guy that talks about Cam the most and the impact that he had on his career was Greg. So we all love Cam. I know the organization and the Teppers certainly still have a special place in their heart for him, and I think a lot of it really just honestly comes down to people get busy doing things, and Cam's a father, and he's got a lot going on, and I think that at the end of the day is really what it comes down to.
I know Luke mentioned T.Y. Hilton, so I wanted to ask you, Josh, was there any NFL receiver that you just loved going against other than OBJ? I don't know if you actually loved going against him.
I would say myself.
Coach, how many snaps you play at receiver in the NFL?
I mean, I said all I did.
More interceptions than you, my man.
I would say Julio. I would say Julio. Reason why I say Julio is because he was the only wide receiver that ran a 4.3 every single time he stepped over the field. It always was a sweet battle, man. Like, it was every single play. It didn't matter if he was blocking, stalking, taking off on a dummy route and coming back. I was in it. We was going to the same place together. And that's, for me, took my game and it risen to another level, because they always write about it and say that, oh yeah, he's going to have this many yards. He's coming off a 150-yard game, so he's definitely going to have it on the Panthers. And I'm like, dang it. I was like Rivera said, like, did he know what place did he come into? Did he know the guy that he's going to go against? That never happened. I had, like, in my locker, literally guys, wide receivers on a stat sheet. And I would mark every last one of them off that I faced. I would see what they got. That's what interviews came in. But with him, though, it was just something morph. It just morphed. And then, when I left, he put up 300 yards. So
He knew I was score, of course. Do you all have, any of you have contact with Tony Romo or any of the Dallas players after that incredible win on Thanksgiving?
We had if you remember that week, there was a long snapper came in for a week because I was dealing with some headaches. So he was sitting right next to me. You gave probably one of your all-time best speeches. You alluded to it in the video. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, we were talking about this today. We go to Dallas. It's a Wednesday night. The team had put out this really nice spread for the families that had come to the game, so like an early Thanksgiving. So everyone was happy. Everyone had full bellies. Everyone was feeling really good. And you walked into the meeting and you just gave this scathing report, much like you talked about us being 10-0. No one really cared about betting lines at that time, but we knew what an underdog was and the whole thing. And I just remembered, so Danny Aiken had played in New England for a number of years. He leans over to me and he goes, "That was the best speech I've ever heard." And I said, it was great, but like what? I've worked with Bill Belichick for 4 years, and all right, guys, this is where we're gonna do. So guys, this is every single week. We went out there, but there was a different look going into that team meeting and coming out of that team meeting. And again, the defense was fantastic. What was talked about a little bit in that I thought was always really important, that never got the full accolades, was our defense was so good that year. It set up the offense. Defense was scoring touchdowns, interceptions. It felt like every time you looked up, Kirk Coleman's intercepted another ball on the logo, like right in midfield, like he did it the whole year. And it was just a great team, but Coach had an unbelievable sense of when to let us go and when to pull us back in. And leading into that game on Thanksgiving was one of those times I think we needed to be reminded of, we weren't everyone's favorites yet, and we were still building towards that.
So in 2014, last game of the season, or regular season, you all beat the brakes off the Falcons to get into the playoffs. 2015, we beat the brakes off of them again, but then unfortunately they end the undefeated season. How did it feel next year watching them in the Super Bowl get such a big lead against another NFL legend and then proceed to kind of squander it away?
I got on an airplane. It was 28-3, and I was like, "Golly, about to win the Super Bowl." And when I landed, it was a bunch of Carolina Panthers fans on the airplane. We were coming back. It was the Super Bowl. Where was the Super Bowl day? It was at Houston. We were coming back from Houston, and we landed, and the plane erupted. And I looked at my phone, and it said the Patriots won the Super Bowl. So it actually worked out pretty good for all of us.
I echo the sentiment. There's nothing like watching one of your rivals just crumble. That was very hard to do. Very hard to do.
That season, it was a build-up from when Coach got there. Coach brought a culture, and I know that phrase gets used a lot, and it's kind of cliche, but it matters. He brings guys in, and he let the guys on our team that were the older guys be themselves and show their personalities and have fun. And Ryan with Pig and even told on Saturdays we'd have walkthrough. Mike would dress up like Dave Gettleman every Saturday and move around here. And everyone, it's just funny. And Cam on Thursdays, every day of the week, it seemed like every guy had something they brought to the table. So Mike on Saturdays would dress like Gettleman, and it was hilarious. Thomas on Tuesdays, every Tuesday during the season, would bring Bojangles in on our day off for everybody on the first floor. So trainers, players, coaches, equipment guys, wait staff. On Thursday, Cam brought tacos into the quarterback room. We'd all go eat tacos in the quarterback room. Then he'd bring it down to the training staff. And then on Fridays, we always had Bojangles in the cafeteria. Roman Harper brought together, big shout out Bojangles, twice in 1 week. I wonder who the owner was. Roman Harper had his own thing. I tell you what, another thing that Tolp did was cool was him and Fozzie. So usually, the thing that gets contentious in a locker room is the music. It can be a point of contention. And the way our locker room was set up, it was a big long rectangle. And for whatever reason, they set the locker room up by offensive linemen. It was set up by position groups. So linemen in the corner, linebackers in the other corner, and then right in the middle of the locker room was the running backs. And for whatever reason, it worked out. And Tolb and Fozzie always played the music, and it sounds like not a big deal, but it's almost like they had a feel for the team and what needed to be played at the right time. These little things, I'm telling you, that make a big difference in a season and a team and bringing people together. When we're having a bad day at practice, come in, Tolb puts something on, brings guys back. On Saturdays after walkthrough, before we go to the airport, Tolb's got something else going. Before the game, he's got something else going. He would always have the same 3 or 4 songs before we go out in the field before the game started. And I'm telling you, when those songs come on, it's a subliminal thing. It's something, if you really read about it, you learn a lot about it. If there's routine and there's habit and there's things that turn on that flight or fight mentality, it's a big deal. And for whatever reason, Mike, I don't know if you did this on purpose or not, but those 3 or 4 songs right before we would go out, it's like everybody kind of was able to be like, man, we got to go play football now. And then even Koch, I know Koch isn't up here obviously, but Koch, I remember Koch, he came in 2014 and was our receiver room. You know, I was on there for 2 years. Steve left in 13, and there was just kind of a void in that room of a veteran guy that was the most selfless dude on the team. Tough, selfless, teacher, could still play a ton, but just didn't care about anything besides winning football games and helping young guys. So when we looked at that team and you looked at free agency and you looked at the draft, all you try to do is fill holes, you know, in the offseason. And that year and even the year before, every room on that team had a veteran guy that wasn't just a really good player, but he's a really good person. If we can start on offense, we start with the running backs. So we had Mike, and then we had Stu. Obviously, I talked a lot about Mike. Mike's phenomenal. Stu was a stud, Pro Bowler that year. Just great people. You go to the tight end room, you had Greg, obviously. You go to the offensive line room, Ryan Khalil, solid, salt-of-the-earth guy, was the center, was the heartbeat of the offensive line. They had a really difficult coach, but he was a great coach to deal with. And Ryan was really good at playing in between the players in the coach. You look at the quarterback room, everybody thinks about Cam, but the one guy in that room that was really good for Cam, and then Ken Dorsey, the head coach or the quarterback coach, was Derek Anderson. And DA would come in and win games for us. But on the offensive side of the ball, every single position room had a veteran guy that could play, that had been around and was a great dude. Koch was that guy. We didn't have that for a long time. And Koch came in and just solidified that room. When Kelvin went down, Koch was able to step up and say, hey, we're going to be good. I'm going to bring Philly along. Ted came back from spending a year in Arizona. Boom, he came back. Koch just was selfless and a great player. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we had Chuck up front with Juan Edwards that we brought over from Baltimore in 2012. Obviously Thomas. And in the back end, it was a combination of Roman Harper, a free agent, and Peanut Tillman. So all of these guys had tremendous personalities, and I'll tell you what Rome and Peanut did a really good job. That room had a lot of personalities between Josh and Marcus Ball and Dean Marlowe and Lou Young and Young Kurt. You guys, they put together a team that was built from the top down with great dudes. And there was an expectation on that team, and there was an expectation from Ron that I'm going to give these players a lot of power, but with this power comes a tremendous amount of responsibility. And these older guys did a great job of fostering relationships with the young guys, bringing young guys along. There's a really powerful dynamic between Ron and these older guys where Ron could be like, hey, look, like the defense is really struggling. This is going on. Hey, Thomas and Chuck, come talk to me. All right, you know what? I'm gonna go talk to Peanut because I spent time with Peanut in Chicago. So this stuff just didn't happen on accident. There was a reason why that team was really good, and it happened in the offseason, and they brought guys in, like I've said for the millionth time, that were great players and great people. So I think a lot of credit goes to Marty Herney for that initial group of guys, Ryan Khalil, Charles Johnson, Jonathan Stewart, Thomas, he drafted Cam, and then when Gettleman came in, he drafted KK and Star Latulele, and then in that was 13 and 14. Shaq was 15, Shaq was 15. But they just put together a really good team where they valued high character guys that were also really good football players. So it was so fun. We could talk about it forever, but I know that's pretty else.
How you follow it?
Talk about your coffee, Josh.
Okay,
So he literally was going to take what I was going to say. 1,000%, but hey, he's certain man, so he has his moments. But I will say this though, Coach really didn't have to do anything. Really didn't have to do anything at all. I'll even go back to, like, in the sense of 14, I felt like that was more talented team than 15 was. I mean, yeah, Greg Hardy and all those other guys that came on, they were just freaks. But then 15 happened, it was more like a controlled chaos. When I mean controlled chaos, because like he said, every level had a vet. And I don't mean just any vet. It was vet where you're not trying to toe that line, vet. And I know our group, Kurt and Roman, literally was like, whatever Unc said or whatever Triple OG said is what we gonna do. All the other ones, it was submissive to that. And guys went out of line. If we did go out and do something, we had made sure that everybody checked on each other. I think that was the biggest thing. We checked on each other and we made sure that we all was doing the right things at the right time. And then the staff, like, I don't know how y'all did that staff, how y'all came up with what y'all did, but that's probably the best staff that I've ever been a part of. And I've been on some teams, but like that right there, it just made a difference. Because you guys was all in unison, then we were all in unison by the vets that you guys put in place over the younger guys. And it's just the whole entire department and unit of the franchise was just together. Like, we just felt that when we went out to play, like on the days that you guys didn't see us, that was Monday through Saturdays, and essentially Sundays and stuff like that. But we were actually, our hardest time was playing against ourselves. It wasn't the games that you guys saw. Those was just Sunday's best. We was just getting dressed for the show. Because we already knew we was going to win before we got on the field. Because what we went through during that week, it was like baptism by fire. Whoever is up is going to get it. And DA was carving us up before Cam was. You guys didn't see that. So that was really like our sense of saying, like, reciprocity of that was just us coming out and feeling the fans and giving you guys a show. That's what it was, a show. And I'll say that because that 15 was truly picture taking, like kicking butt, loving, tail in every sense of the word. Because now you're looking at the guys today from what we did in 15, now you see them going into the end zone and taking pictures and celebrate and going down with their team. We figured started all that. If you look back before us, no other team did that until we came on the scene. And so I give credit to all of that because it was not just us with the football. It was like the city of Charlotte and everyone that was literally in South Carolina, North Carolina, the Carolina Connect, because we felt all of it. And the passion that just went through every sign. Like, me and Mr. Morris, like, we ate at Arts. Like, we was hanging out. Like, the president of the Panthers, we hang out. Like, it's a serious thing. So it's not just like they up here and they can't be touched. No, like, they really care. You feel that care. And it went all the way through. And so it was just, it touched me. It touched, I know, everybody here. And when we came back from the Super Bowl, like, yeah, we was down, but when we seen that fandom, like, we seen everybody that was back there, it just made everything else like, yeah, we took an L, but look at all the people who showed up to celebrate that year. That season wasn't lost. It was actually gained by everybody that was, like, felt in that city, man. It didn't matter what you did in that city. You felt like you was a winner because every week you had a high. Just like what we did. Yeah. I don't think you ever can replace that.
I've said this many times. You did want a normal team. You did build it like a normal team, but you built it like a perfect team. So what Josh said, the staff was unbelievable. But most people in the NFL and just in life they build an organization and then they rule with an iron fist. And you never built it that way. You put a group of unbelievably talented coaches and players together, and then you encouraged all of them to lead well. And you would certainly give us direction on a daily basis, but you allowed the leaders to lead and the coaches to coach. And that was really special because I think a lot of times in the NFL, in college, certainly in high school, especially if you're coaching middle school football at Charlotte Christian, like the players are like kind of afraid of the coaches. And I don't think we're ever afraid of you. We're afraid of disappointing you. Like a father, we were afraid of not doing well and making you proud. We were never afraid of you, and you created this unbelievable culture where it felt like our team. It didn't feel like your team. It felt like our team. And I remember really early on in our time together, you walked in the locker room one time and said, "This isn't your locker room. This is our locker room." And you began to forge these bonds between the players and the coaches. Those same relationships, Josh, that you just talked about. It wasn't us versus them. It was us as a collective group. And the way that trickled down to that team, and it was building for a number of years, was, I still say the most special thing was our leaders, our captains. Every single one of them that you saw walking out there, our captains were all there when you first showed up. In 2011, you and I were talking about this today, you gave the Mike Ditka speech that said, good news is in 5 years we're going to the Super Bowl. Bad news is you might not all be here. And I remember sitting in that room going, oh my God, I hope that's not me. I hope I'm still here. And I was, and I was so thankful for it. But you built all those leaders, and you built those leaders by giving them the platform to lead. Ryan Khalil and Jordan Gross, we know like they are jokesters, and you saw some of it, but you allowed yourself to be made fun of. And we laughed at you, and you laughed at them, and every time you thought you had one over, they okey dumped you, right? Like, but you created this world in which everyone could lead well, and then what it trickled down to was the players never fought for leadership positions. Cam was the show. Greg said it in the video. Cam was the show, but Thomas was the heart and soul of that team. And Thomas was the heart and soul of the team, but Luke ran the defense. And Cam might have been the show, but Greg and Ryan were making sure everything works on offense. And everyone was taking care of everyone, and I'm so glad you brought up the music. Cole, you are the best locker room DJ there's ever been. I even knew some of the songs, which was so good. And look, the Al Pacino speech from Any Given Sunday, that's how we knew it was game time. But you had a great sense of it. And again, everyone had a role that they owned, and they were a leader, and no one was trying to take that job from you. Like there was no arguing over any of that stuff. It just made for a world where we all felt like we were on the same ride together. And that's so rare and that's so special. But that culture was there before the winning. And when people talk about building culture to win, that was the culture that we were building, and you created the environment for that let everything else prosper. So that was a really special ride.
Thank you.
We actually do have time for one more question, but I'm sorry, I'm going to ask it. Coach, what's the difference between your NFC Championship ring and the rings that belong to the rest of the guys on the team?
I'm a little bit of a sore loser. I hate losing. And after you lose the Super Bowl, you have to put together an NFC Championship ring. And so we're doing the work, Daddy knows, he was in on the conversation. And, we're doing basically what everybody does. We got Jostin there. They're showing us how they're going to do the ring. They're going to design it. And you say, on this side, on this jacket, we're going to put the player name, and we'll put his jersey number. Okay, and then on this side, we're going to put, we'll put the team record, and, we'll do this, and we'll put the score and all that. And I looked at him, I said, okay, yeah, great. We'll put 17-1. And everybody looks at me and goes, what do you mean 17-1? You're 17-2. I said, no. This is the NFC Championship ring. It's not the Super Bowl loser ring. So I told him, I said, if you put 17-1 on my ring, I will never wear it. 17-2 on my ring, I will never wear it. My ring says 17-1, I'll wear it, and I'll wear it proudly. And it made me realize the truth of the matter is, what you saw is great. I would cut out the very end you talk about the Super Bowl loss. Because the truth of the matter is, celebrate the 17-1. Celebrate what they did, winning the NFC Championship for this city. Take pride in that, okay? Yeah, teams lose, you lose a Super Bowl, it is sour. But you won the NFC Championship, and you did it at 17-1, okay? 17-1. Nobody else did it at 17-1. Just understand what you did, what you accomplished. Be proud of that. And be proud of that for these guys as well. Because it was my pleasure to serve as their head coach. It was my pleasure to serve as your team's head coach and to do that for you. So thank you all very much for being here. Really appreciate each and every one of you for being here. Thank you.